Hey everybody, it's Greenwood again with another tutorial video. In today's video, the first part is going to be about the first 6 circles vocab words that we discussed in class on Monday. And then the next video you can watch will be about the second 6 vocab words. So we'll look at where they are in the diagram and how to write the correct notation. Also, I guess, as well as having the definitions here so you can pause the video and copy those down. Okay, so circles vocab. Again, these are ones that you should be more familiar with from probably middle school. So the center is the point equidistant from all points on the circle. So remember, equidistant just means equal distance or the same distance. And in this case, that's point E is my center. So point E is the same distance from all points on the green line, which is the circle. It's not really a line, but the green curve that makes the circle. The second term is the radius. That's a segment, so that means it has ends. And it connects the center of the circle we just talked about to the edge of the circle. I forgot to write point E. Point E. All right. So the radius, there's a couple examples here. We don't have a letter here, so I'm just going to call that a Q because I didn't use a Q yet. Okay, so ED is an example of a radius. EQ is an example of a radius. And so with the correct notation, it's the endpoints of the segment with the segment marker over the top, just like we talked about at the very beginning of the year. I could draw from E to H. That would be a radius. E to G, E to F, E to C, E to B. Any point on the circle, I could add a point here and call it point X or something and draw a radius there. The diameter is also a segment that has endpoints on the circle, and it has to pass through the center. Okay, so one example here would be DQ. So D is on the circle, Q is on the circle. So there's D, there's Q. It's a segment connecting those two. And E, the center we talked about, the first part, is on that segment. So that's what makes it a diameter. And another thing about the diameter is it does cut the circle into 2 equal parts. And I know that this arc from D around through B to Q will be 180 degrees, the exact same measure as the arc from D through G and H all the way to Q. So 2 equal parts. The circumference is actually the green curve. It's the part that's the distance around the outside of the circle. Another way to think about that is just say it's a fancy way to say the perimeter. Okay, so we call it the circumference for a circle, but it's just a fancy way to say perimeter. Okay. An arc, and there's kind of 2 parts here. An arc is just a part or a portion of the circumference. So a major arc is more than half. So that would be like from D through C, and I'll trace that with my marker. So D through C, B, Q to H. So that's a really rudimentary major arc. That would be arc, we'll call it DH. And the notation that goes on top is like a segment, but it's got to be curved. So something sort of like that. So that's major arc DH. Minor arc is less than half. So one example would be something small like F to G. And there are multiple examples of each of these. That's just one example. Make sure that notation is arced. So you're talking about the green part of the curve, not a segment connecting them. Another example of a major arc would be from like F to Q. Another example of a minor arc might be from like C to Q or from D to B. Less than half versus more than half, minor versus major. And lastly, a semicircle, just half the circle. It's like we talked about with the diameter, it cuts into 2 equal pieces. A semicircle, semi meaning half, is just half the circle. And that's pretty much all there is to that one. I hope this one helped. This gives you the first 6 vocab terms with some identification of what they look like on the diagram. I'll go back and highlight. So on the diagram, that's my radius. It's actually not the one I identified. We'll do the one I identified. So ED is my radius there, here, and then my diameter I did in green. So that's from D to Q right there. So we'll put that on there as well. Okay, and then pointy again, that's my center in red. Okay, so we'll see you in the next video talking about the next 6 vocab terms for circles, and hope you have a good one. See ya.